What is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another CZN video. And today we have a tier list for the 5-star characters in the game. Now I decided to separate the 5 stars and the 4 stars because the 5 stars are mostly going to be DPS characters outside of like 1 or maybe 2, and the 4 stars you're mostly going to see as supports. And the DPS 4-star characters, you don't really notice that they're really strong until you max dupe them. So it got very hectic, so I decided for this portion of the early game, for the launch of the game, I will be separating them from, the 5 stars and the 4 stars from being together. So we're just going to talk about all these characters and what I think about them right now. Of course, this tier list is preliminary, it's in the early game, and honestly, no tier list in the game right now is like 100% correct because no one's made it to the late game yet to test out certain decks. Some characters that you see on the tier list that are lower than you think might become like S tier if you make it to the late game and get them on a really cracked out setup that just has no rival. So just keep that in mind. It's just my personal thoughts after 1, testing a lot of these characters, and 2, watching people play it. The only character I haven't personally tested is actually Veronica because I never actually pulled her on the beta or on live. I actually had to watch my friend play her to get some data on her. Haru, which just came out, I actually played on my alt account that I rerolled on, so I did test her out a bit, but for the most part, I think I have a general idea of how good these characters can be. So we're going to separate these characters into 3 different tiers: S tier, A tier, B tier. Pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing below B tier because every unit in the game, even the 4 stars, is perfectly viable in the endgame content. It's just going to be a matter of which characters are easier to make work in more team comps and with less resources involved. So just keep that in mind. If your favorite characters in the B tier here, you can still use them. I actually use some of the B tier characters, which I put on my own tier list, which I'll talk about, and they're still perfectly viable. They're just going to be more reliant on certain setups and draws. Now, starting off the tier list, we have Renoa, the main character of the game, and I'm gonna put her in the A tier comfortably. I think she's like a good baseline for characters to like rank them against, because she's like a perfectly balanced character. I'd say she's like pretty strong, but not that strong. And the reason why is because she is kind of limited to her usage because she really requires some supports to work. And the reason why is because 1, she has all 1-cost abilities. You can see all of her cards are 1. And 2, she really relies on just spamming a lot of her skills. She's pretty AP hungry for a character that has 1-cost cards because you just need to generate a lot of these dirge bullets, and you ideally want to play them as well instead of discarding because they do damage, like more damage. So it makes it so that she's kind of weird in a sense where you kind of want to just leave these bullets in your hand, but you also want to play them. So it's a weird playstyle. She also relies on certain buffers like Ray to give her that extra damage on 1-cost cards. She really wants Mika as well for the AP boost, but it isn't required for her because, like I said, you can kind of leave those bullets to just discard themselves. So you can replace Mika with Nia, which frees up your Mika for other teams, and it's really good for her because, Renoa can actually heal your team with this elasticity buff that she can apply to your team here, because those dirge bullets, when they discard, it counts as an extra attack. So pretty solid DPS. You'll see that her DPS is like, her damage entirely is like not the highest, but it's decent. The only thing is like, yeah, it's kind of a weird playstyle. It's really fun, don't get me wrong, and I have her, and I actually use her on one of my teams, but it's not really the best character, I'd say. Her ego skill also is like kind of weird. You can't really use it all the time because you have to like discard your dirge bullets first or have them in your draw, which literally never happens unless you shuffle it back in. So it's just weird to use. I think instead of like this effect where you're moving those dirge bullets, it should just generate 2, honestly. It'd be a lot better. If this was like 5 cost or 6 cost and generated 2 dirge bullets, I think this would be a lot stronger. So that's my personal thoughts on Renoa. She's a decent character and nothing crazy. Next we have Rin. So I'm gonna put Rin in B tier before you guys say anything because I know a lot of people love this character for her design. I also love this character, and she is my most built character. So this is the character I rerolled for. I've been testing her all the time. I didn't get to use her in beta, so I decided let's reroll for the waifu. You can see I have like literally like my best stuff on her. I have like a dupe on her, I have like potential her. So I think I can say for a fact that she's a B tier character, even as a big fan of her. The reason is because she's so hard to play and there's a lot of RNG with her kit. The reason why she's hard to play is because you have to chain her cards over and over together, because the way she works is you need the stance to be on her, because it just buffs all of your other unique cards' damage. You'll see the stance on this ability, for example, will double the damage of this card. On this one, for example, it will do a ton more damage to this card. I don't even know how much. So you really have to maintain the stance. You have to, one, draw into the cards that give you the stance, and two, you can't have any other character use an attack card between your cards, because you're chaining it. You'll see if another combatant's attack card is used, you will remove it. So that's like easier to play around, but you're gonna see that, one, you have to draw the cards, two, you have to like also have like the unique cards in your hand. It's just really weird playstyle, honestly, and I think the thing that makes it the weirdest is I really think like this third form's card should be something different. I think it should be like another 1-cost card that does something else instead of just doing damage. Either like help you draw, or like just be a 1-cost card in general, and it'd be a lot better because you'd have another cheap way to enter your Dark Mist stance. But overall, she feels a bit clunky to play, I'd say, and there's not a lot of like supports that synergize really well with her, and there's also like not a lot of good gear that synergizes well with her, because she has a mixture of like 0-cost cards, of 2-cost cards, and 1-cost cards, so it's a little weird. So in my opinion, I think she's a B tier, and I'm still going to use her until, the end game, because I'm a fan of her design. But in terms of strength, she's definitely like a little lackluster, I'd say. So next up we have Orlea. This one is also going to be a B tier character, and the reason is pretty simple. It's just like she takes the spot of Mika and Nia, and they just do way more than her. Orlea kind of plays around her buffs, and the thing with buffs in this game is, yes, they're good, but there's like different epiphanies which make buffs like super strong. So in like a base deck setup, she's pretty weak. So in the early game, she's not going to be that good. I'm sure later on she's going to be extremely powerful, but for right now, because it's an early game tier list, she's just not the best character. Nia and Mika are just way better because they have way more immediate effects, and they have drawing and AP generation, which is going to be just really powerful. So I think like Orlea, I think it's just like the point of the game is why it feels like she's not that good, and I'm sure later on she'll be very powerful. And if you actually get dupes of her, if you actually look at her dupes, she's really good with dupes. You'll see that when you make your creation card into a 3-star, which is like a playstyle effect, which I won't go into in depth with because it's pretty complicated, you get to retain it, which makes it really strong. But base stats or base deck, and like just in general in the early game, feels a bit lackluster. At least she did in the beta, so maybe she's stronger now, but for me, when I played her in the beta, it just didn't feel that great. And I actually really wanted her in the beta because any support that's a 5-star immediately rings some bells, must be OP, but in this case that is just not it. So yeah, she's in the B tier. Next we have Luke. This is probably the worst character out of the 5-stars in my opinion, and the reason is because his damage is just, I don't want to say non-existent, but pretty bad. I actually have a friend that has him at T5, I think, and he doesn't use him over a T1 Hugo, which is pretty wild, right? And the reason why is because he does like okay damage, nothing too crazy. His bullet abilities are just terrible. I don't know like what this is, but like if the target has a shield, you do extra damage. It's very conditional, and even then it doesn't do that much. You put Mark on, which is okay, but like the bullets just feel really weak. And the biggest thing is you really need to crit a lot with him, and you can't get a lot of crit rate early game because no one's really min-maxing gear yet. So I'm sure later on he can be very good when you pair him with like Lucas, who's very good with bullet characters. But for now, because Luke doesn't seem that strong, both him and Lucas just feel just weird to play. I know there's people that love playing Luke because his design is pretty badass, but in terms of damage, compared to the other characters, it is very lackluster. And his ego skill, it's okay, but the thing with this is like, you can only play this at the start of your turn really. So yeah, and it doesn't really do much. Like the increased damage is nice, but like compared to other skills, it just doesn't do anything, to be honest. Like vulnerable is just way more impactful, right? So yeah, gonna just put him in the B tier for now. So next up we have, who do we have here? Haru. So Haru's an A tier character. Honestly, I think late game she's S tier, but for now, right now, I think she's A tier. And I think like S tier is like kind of selling it short. I think she's like insanely OP late game. But the thing is with Haru is she is pretty reliant on dupes. So every dupe in this game, like every character in this game that's a 5-star with dupes gets really strong. But the thing with Haru, let's actually talk about what she does. So one, she's really AP hungry, so you need to pair her with things that can, you know, give her AP, so Mika. But also she really wants to combo her cards. She wants to anchor shot a lot at the beginning to start stacking it to make it do more damage. You also want to have lift anchor so you can actually buff it, but this makes it more expensive. And also, like anchor pointer allows you to draw it from your draw pile or graveyard to start stacking it more. You can even buff it again so you can do more damage. You can see it's very AP heavy, so it's really hard to use anything that uses any AP really, so you kind of have to run her with Mika and like another support. So it just makes her like not the best character in the early game, honestly, but late game, when you get 2 dupes of her, this character is absolutely crazy. I actually watched my friend play this at T2, and this upgrade is like one of the best ones in the game. And the reason why is because you can see that it makes your anchor shot be used even when you don't have enough AP. And this is going to be super broken because you can see why. You can just spam your anchor shot. Anything that can draw for you, such as a Nia or like even like a Cassius who can draw like another anchor shot right away. Yeah, she's able to stack it extremely quickly. It also works with lift anchor, so it's like a pretty broken interaction. So at T2 she gets extremely powerful, but yeah, like in the early game I can't really put her anywhere above A because even though her damage potential is so high, when you're trying to 3-star stages in like battle missions, Haru can't really do it without crazy setup and crazy like decks and gear because it just takes forever to ramp up her damage. But yeah, she's a pretty powerful character though. I'd say in the late game she's definitely going to shoot up to the S tier if I make another tier list, but for now I just have her in the A tier. Next we have Mei Lin. So I think Mei Lin's another solid A tier character. She's like pretty powerful, I'd say. The thing is, like, there's just better DPS in the game. This is one of the characters I really want because I played her a lot in beta. But the thing with Mei Lin is she has 0 AoE. That's like the biggest downside of her. You can get some epiphanies or neural cards to help with it, but you can see that even her ego skill, when you look at other characters, you'll see that they have AoE. She doesn't. But her single target damage is absolutely crazy, and if you pair her with like a Ray, she's very, very strong, but very selfish DPS. She doesn't do anything but do damage, so that's what it is. And she kind of wants to run in the Passion team composition, so that is gonna be basically her. And yeah, there's not really a lot of good Passion characters to synergize with her right now, but in general, pretty solid DPS, nothing wrong with using her. But I think she'll definitely get stronger as new characters release, so another character that'll probably shoot up to the S tier once we get more characters. So that is Mei Lin. Next we have Magna. So Magna is top of A tier. I don't think she's like super OP or anything or game changing, but she's a pretty good character. She has decent shielding, she has a ton of counterattacking, and she does a lot of AoE damage. The only downside about her is to do that AoE damage and to actually make your counterattacks like worthwhile, you need to draw Ice Shield. This makes it so that your counterattacks for 1 turn do AoE, and also you want to make sure you have as many counterattack stacks as you can. Also against characters or against bosses that don't do a lot of multi-hits, so they only hit you like once, she's not able to counterattack a lot, so it makes her less strong. So against bosses she's not as good, and that's like a downside, but if you're looking for a good like bruiser DPS that counterattacks, she's really strong, but outside of that, nothing too crazy. I think honestly, overall, you're better off using Maribel in a lot more situations because even though she does counterattack, her ego skill is super OP at 4. 4 cost for 350% shield, super OP, and then Magna's is like, what, 6 for a single target attack? Yeah, so it's not that good. So that's just how it is. And I don't really think she's like the most broken thing, but I do use her in some of my teams, and she is pretty solid, I'd say, especially for Chaos. She's absolutely amazing there. So next up we have Veronica, which I said I didn't play ever, but I did see someone play her. And honestly, this character looks pretty cracked, I'm not gonna lie, but because I'm not 100% certain, I'm gonna put her in the A tier. And the reason why she's so good, from what I saw, and I'm sure you guys, a lot of you guys probably have her and play her, I'm just curious what you guys think about her placement. This character doesn't have to really spend AP to do a ton of damage because of this Ballista ability. You can see, you know, if you have this card At the start of your turn, you create this, and at the end of your turn, you're doing damage. So she's like a character that doesn't have to do anything to do damage, which is absolutely broken in my opinion. And she also gives you a lot of draw, which is insane. So I think she's pretty good. She can reload as well, which will give you more ballista damage. But this card you don't even have to play that much. You're just mostly using her to draw for you and just do passive damage, which sounds absolutely broken. Also, her ego skill is pretty OP. You just do a ton of AoE piercing damage, which is going to ignore shields. And also, like, you gain this reload. So if you have a lot of cards that can generate ballistas, what you can do is use your ego skill, generate ballistas, and then you can actually just sit there and just do a ton of damage. So, yeah. I think she's a pretty good character. I want to test her out. I really hope I pull her. But from what I saw, she looked pretty OP in the right setup. Especially because if you get a good like deck setup for her with the save data from Chaos, she looks absolutely crazy. So I'm gonna put her in A tier, but I won't be surprised if once people start figuring her out, she becomes one of the best characters. So yeah. Next we have Kayron. So Kayron, S tier or A tier? I'm gonna say A tier. And actually, yeah, I'm gonna say A tier. And the reason why is because he is very selfish, similar to Haru, very AP heavy. But the thing is, he synergizes so well with a lot of characters that, especially the 4-star characters, that he's pretty strong. Especially with like Tressa, he's very good, with Cassius. But the thing is, like, he just requires a lot of AP because, one, you use your skills for this status ailment that you want to exhaust so that you can buff your unique cards, and then you use it and do a ton of damage. So you want like Mika to buff his AP so that you can actually use it, or you want like Tressa so that she can exhaust with her daggers for you. So very specific team comps around him. I can't really put him in S tier even though he does like one of the highest burst damages in the game, because he does require a lot of setup. And actually, he does really require good save data. There's like a build you can do with save data where he actually reduces the cost of like most of his skills, so he isn't as AP reliant. But until you get there, you're going to see that this character is going to be very selfish and kind of annoying to use at sometimes. So that is Kayron. Now let's go into Khalipe. So Khalipe got nerfed, but I still think she's an amazing character. I don't know if she's S tier. She probably still is, honestly, just because she can flex into anything that you want. What I mean by that is you can use her as your main damage dealer, or you can even use her as like a shielding support. So she can do both, but if you choose to do both at the same time, that's where she gets a little bit lackluster because she is somewhat AP heavy, but she does a lot of damage. Like her vulture ejection skill does so much damage. This celestial buff is super strong because if you have a character that uses a lot of AP, you can just slaughter in and it just activates automatically. So that's why she's pretty good. You can just slaughter in, and then when you need a shield, you can use it, and then just have her sit there and just like use the vulture ejection eventually. But for the most part, like her other cards, it's pretty hard to use. The rally card is like one of the best cards in the game. You can like force draw like Kayron's, you know, nuke ability if you want. So yeah. I think she's a pretty good character still. Is she like the top of S tier? Probably not. I think she's number 2 or number 3 now, but she's still a very good character nonetheless that I just got, so I'm very happy, which I will have to build. Then last but not least, we have Hugo. I think this is the best character in the game right now, and the reason why is maybe not in the late game because I know his damage will fall off, but in the early game, this guy does so much damage. It's absolutely crazy. The reason why is because you just use the skill, you just bring characters that have a lot of upgrades and skill cards, and then basically they just spam like any attack, and your Hugo will follow up and do a ton of damage. And he can even buff that damage with this Fixer's approach and his ego skill. So yeah, he also has a lot of AoE with his ego skill and also with this Fan of Daggers. Really strong. He can draw for you as well. He has a shield if you really want to use it. But he synergizes extremely well with one of the best 4-star DPSs in Tressa. Tressa does a ton of damage with her Agony. This just does a ton of dot damage. But then she also can do this ability which will generate these Shadow Daggers and also stack even more Agony, which is insane, right? And this will proc Hugo's follow-up attacks. And on top of that, she has 5 blue cards, these skill cards. So she has 5 ways, if Hugo activates this hunting instincts, to generate stacks for him. So they synergize extremely well together, and you're going to see a lot of people using this comp because it is really powerful. And even without Tressa, Hugo is just absolutely amazing with any support because he just generates so many follow-up attacks and does a lot of damage. The only thing is, his burst damage isn't that great, so he does kind of fall off when you start getting to harder stages, I'd say. And also on top of that, his deck really relies on drawing hunting instincts. If you can't draw this, he kind of just sits there and doesn't do as much. Obviously you can commence the hunt by yourself, but you really want to draw this hunting instincts because when you pair him with something like a Mika can just give him free stacks with the source of water, with the tactical analysis, and if you actually get a lot of those epiphanies that reduce your costs of some of your skills to 0 with Mika and also Tressa, for example, with Unsheathed Dagger, well, then you're just generating, a ton of free stacks. So that is Hugo. I think more so with Hugo, it's just like the comp. Because of the comp being so good and synergizing so well, that's why he feels so OP. But yeah, definitely for the early game, it's a character that you can slot in easily because the comp only requires 4 stars besides him. So yeah. But that is pretty much it for today's tier list though, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Like I said, it's pretty generic. I think there's not really a right or wrong tier list right now in the game. But this is mostly centered around the early game, and I think it's going to be mostly relevant. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.